So you want to play Dragonbane RPG by Free League and prefer having someone go over the rules with you quickly and clearly. This video is for you. So let's go. This game has a roll-under system for determining skill checks, combat attacks, and spellcasting. It's a simple combination of your character's base attribute, making a target number you have to roll below using a 20-sided die to succeed, or a related skill. The skills that you select when you start the game are double your base attribute number. Skills that you select as you play have to be increased as you play. So a critical success, called a dragon, is a 1, while a natural 20 is very bad, and that's called rolling a demon. This game system also includes boon and bane, which is the same as advantage and disadvantage from Dungeons & Dragons, pretty much. Notice I didn't say attribute bonus, I said base attribute. What is a base attribute? Depending on what your total attribute score is, instead of giving a bonus to dice rolls to beat a target difficulty number, you're given a base target number for the attribute itself, as all the skills, like in Dungeons & Dragons, are associated with an attribute. If you roll under that base attribute or combined skill number, you succeed. We have the attributes of strength, constitution, agility, intelligence, willpower, and charisma. To determine those, we roll 46 and drop the lowest die for a range of between 3 and 18. These scores can be further modified by the kin of your character, which is their heritage, species, race, or whatever, and their age. Be aware that the constitution score is your hit point score. The only way to increase this is by the robust heroic ability, which is like the toughness feat from Dungeons & Dragons, and all the heroic abilities your character gets from their profession use your willpower points, determined by your willpower attribute number, which can only be increased with the focused heroic ability. Heroic abilities are like feats, but in this game, you have a willpower attribute, and that number of points is what you spend to activate and use those heroic abilities. As you level up in the game, you get more ranks and skills and more heroic abilities. Skills and heroic abilities are closely linked to each other, but more on leveling up later. The strength of your character is used for how much you can carry and the damage bonus for hand-to-hand weapons. Plus, some weapons and armor have minimum strength requirements. High agility gives a bonus to the character's movement rate per round of combat. Low agility gives a penalty, and some kin move faster or slower than others do. The age of your character is divided into 3 categories. Young characters get a bonus to strength and agility, but only 8 skills to select at the start of play. Adult characters get no attribute modifiers and 10 skills. Old characters get -2 to strength, agility, and constitution, but they get +1 to intelligence and willpower and a total of 12 skills to start with. Your kin selections are human, elf, dwarf, halfling, these duck people called mallards, and canine people called wolfkin. They all have a unique ability that costs 3 willpower points to use, although the elf and mallard have 3 innate special abilities. Other than movement rate, the rest is just thematic stuff. There's no other rules about kin attributes and such unless you add them to the game yourself, such as for like gear or magic restrictions or whatever. In a nutshell, humans can adapt one skill to roll in place of another for a situation if it makes sense. Halflings can dodge out of the way very well. Dwarves are really good at taking revenge on their enemies. Elves heal extra well when resting. Mallards can basically rage to do better at a skill roll, and the wolfkin can track prey by their sense of smell. Wolfkin are the fastest runners, and mallards are natural swimmers, as you'd expect for duck people. Professions are basically your character class. You must assign 6 of your skill choices to the skills listed in your profession, and all characters get a heroic ability from their profession. Plus, they get to choose another one, except for mages, who just get to cast spells. Your profession also provides your starting gear and tells you your character's key attribute. Artisans can fix and make gear. Bards can play music which influences others. Fighters have a trick with initiative order in combat. Hunters have animal companions. Knights can take hits to protect others. Mages cast spells. Mariners are good with water. Merchants can sense the direction to treasure. Scholars can ask the game master a question. And thieves can backstab. Dice rolls for skills, special abilities, spells, and combat are all pretty much the same. Your character's attribute number gives you your base chance instead of a dice roll bonus. If your character doesn't have a trained skill, they can always roll their base chance for an appropriate attribute. There are 30 core skills. These don't cost any willpower points to use. Many of the heroic abilities require minimum levels in certain skills, and they usually require 1 to 3 willpower points to use. I'll say this again because it's important. Like hit points, your willpower attribute is your willpower point total unless you increased it by picking up the focused heroic ability. And you can take the robust and focused heroic ability multiple times, but leveling up is quite different in Dragonbane. At the end of the game session, according to the base rules, you figure out how many skills you qualify to try advancing. But the rules do say to be permissive, so for each skill you roll a 20-sided die and try to roll over your skill total. If you do, you increase that skill by 1 point to a maximum of 18. You get an additional skill point chance by training with a teacher in a skill for a while. Each time you advance a skill to 18, you get to pick an additional heroic ability, or the GM can grant you one for performing particularly heroic and cool deeds with your character during the game. Simple, but as you can see, the increased skill total gets more difficult to roll over as it gets higher. You level up fast to begin with, but it slows down as your character becomes an expert adventurer, as you would expect. Time is divided up into combat rounds, which are about 10 seconds. You can move and attack during a round. You determine initiative order by drawing from a stack of numbered cards. Once your turn is done, you flip over the card. You can also use reactions, which are actions you take before your initiative has been used in the round. Say for example, an opponent is swinging a sword at your character and you decide to try to parry with your shield outside of your turn. That's a reaction. More on that later. A round can also be spent having a micro rest, catching your breath. This restores 1d6 willpower points, but no hit points, and it doesn't cure conditions. And can only be done once per shift of 6 hours. And between these two spaces of time we have what's called a stretch, which is 15 minutes, long enough for more detailed tasks or taking a short rest. This restores 1d6 hit points or 2d6 if someone is using their healing skill on another person. A full shift of 6 hours is basically a good night's sleep. You need one of these a bare minimum of once every 3 days or you're going to get sleep deprivation, which basically removes your ability to recover willpower points or recover from negative conditions. A full shift rest will restore all your willpower and hit points and remove all negative conditions. But you can only do this in a safe, comfortable place with no monsters around. More importantly, you can only have one short stretch rest between full shift rests, and anyone using healing on another gives up their stretch rest benefits, as you cannot be doing any other task other than resting during those times. But they can take a rest later if they get the chance. Sooner or later, some other character does something that takes 15 minutes in a safe location, and the healer can have a quick nap. There are 6 negative conditions, 1 for each attribute. Strength becomes exhausted, constitution becomes sickly, agility becomes dazed, intelligence becomes angry, willpower becomes scared, and charisma becomes disheartened. These can be inflicted by things in the game, but you can also inflict them on your own character by what is called pushing your rolls. All a condition means is that you suffer bane on all checks involving that attribute, including any skill checks, attacks, or whatever associated with it. So rolling 2 20-sided dice and taking the higher and worst result until that condition is removed. Poisons usually inflict a condition and extra nasty effects on top of that if your character suffers the full effect, rather than a limited effect of the poison from failing an ability roll to resist it. Pushing a roll can be attempted whenever a player character fails a skill or attribute-based roll. They get to make another attempt unless they rolled a natural 20 demon result the first time, which is a critical fail. Pushing a roll will always cause this character to suffer from a condition afterwards, and you can't stack one condition on top of another on the same attribute, and it has to be an attribute related directly to what the character is attempting to do. So a character is not likely to be doing this very often. It's possible to have a condition for every attribute at the same time and still remain standing, but the character is pretty messed up. Opposed skill or attribute checks are also simple. You roll under your base attribute or skill total. If the opponent, object, or whatever resisting it also succeeds on their roll, it's whoever rolls the lowest number. In case of an exact tie, the player character always wins. If the player character fails their skill or attribute roll, the opponents always win, even if they also failed their roll because, well, nothing happened. In combat, there are lots of little tricks you learn as you go, such as using your character's persuade skill to encourage a fellow player character in the group to keep on fighting even if they have no hit points left. That's called rallying. Getting reduced to 0 hit points is a fairly bad thing. You have to make a base constitution check or suffer a severe injury, such as a broken leg or amnesia, which can cause problems that last longer than a shift rest to recover from. The most important thing with combat is that you're not rolling to beat the target's armor class, you're rolling to use your weapons correctly. If you don't mess up your weapon skills, you will hit your target. The armor they might be wearing just reduces the damage they take and generally makes them less agile. Some armor types are better at reducing certain damage type. Also, shields and weapons can be broken by being hit and damaged, which is why having an artisan along with a group is a great idea. They're like your gear healer. You can also choose to parry or dodge. There are some rules. A parry or dodge can only be attempted before a character has spent their action for the round. This is a reaction, which is what you call any action that your character takes outside of their turn during the round. And of course, you can't use a reaction after you have used your action already. With dodge, you get out of the way of the attack entirely, so you don't need to be using a weapon or shield. You're making an evade skill check. If you succeed, you leap one square on the battle mat in your chosen direction without triggering any free attacks from anyone. A parry is when you use your weapon or shield to block an attack. Ranged attacks can only be parried by a shield, and monster attacks can't be parried. If you succeed against the skill level you have with your character's weapon, they have blocked the attack, and you can not only move them one square in any direction, but also their opponent they are adjacent to. Shields and weapons have a durability rating, which is how much damage they can safely deflect in one attack without getting damaged and becoming unusable until they are repaired. Either way, a successful parry blocks all of that damage from the attack. Armor doesn't worry about durability. If you roll a dragon success on your weapon skill to parry, you get to make an immediate counterattack, which is why parrying is excellent despite the risk of breaking your gear. As a rule, big gnarly monsters' attacks can't be parried. Casting spells is just a matter of rolling your spell skill check and spending the willpower points. There's no spell slots or anything. Your mage has a spell book called a grimoire. Each mage will know a bunch of spells and a bunch of free to use tricks, which are basically cantrips from D&D. So a much smoother and easier to run system, certainly very fast paced, and it can be quite deadly. There are lots more little quirks and features to the game system, but you've now heard the core rules, and the rest will fall into place very quickly once you dive into playing it. If you would like a follow-up video on some of those details, adventure tools, and the monsters found in the book, let me know down in the comments, and remember to hit that like button and refresh your notification bell for the channel. My name is AJ Pickett. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.